sometimes in the form of blessing and grace, sometime in the form of punishment and corruption. That divine will, equally pious and cruel, which we could not and will never be able to unravel, was called the miracle.
As Altasgracias narrates, the miracle is a powerful force that punishes and uplifts at will and manifests itself in different ways. The pile of ash, the golden visages, and the last son of the miracle are all works of the miracle and part of its plan for penance. It is referred to as the grievous miracle or the sorrowful miracle, and it is both worshipped and feared, as it punishes and blesses the people of this land. The miracle seems to have some form of will, as it is often attributed with having its own will and plan. The miracle seems to have first manifested itself in the form of the first miracle.
One devout and tormented youngster asked the high will for punishment. He placed a wooden log where he sat and prayed. He prayed hoping to be heard. He prayed for pain, so he could ease the guilt that sharply pierced his soul. Then, the miracle manifested itself. It made roots grow and twist over his arms and legs.
Altasgracias describes how a young boy prayed to be punished, to feel pain, and his prayer was answered. His suffering is seen as a miracle. He prayed for pain in order to ease his sense of guilt, his inherent guilt. And this plays on the idea of original sin in Christianity, that is, that we are inherently born with sin, inherited from the actions of those that came before us. And in the dark world of Blasphemous, this means venerating the cruel punishment by the miracle as payment for these sins. The young man became the first father, the twisted one, and he is the being that we see in the iconography, akin to Jesus upon the cross, a man contorted around wood. We can see this imagery in the menu, the hilt of our sword, and the large statue in the Silent Brotherhood's church, and we see it in the form of punishment that we see throughout the land, where people are crucified in the same position he was, and in fact it seems to make up the religious symbol that looks like a figure of 8. The current age of suffering, known as the Age of the Turned Throne, started with a new manifestation of the sorrowful miracle, which resulted in the creation of the Pile of Ash. The Kickstarter campaign for the game gives us some good oversight of this miracle and the events leading up to the game. The High Pontiff, leader of the religion of this world, was sick of a world full of sin and lack of penance, and so he turned his throne and his back on the people. Following this symbolic gesture, the miracle transformed him into a giant tree. This tree then burned for 90 days and 90 nights and left a giant pile of ash in its wake. It's possible that the lack of devotion and the sin that's been described in the Kickstarter campaign is the reason for the punishment that would follow. But more importantly from this passage, it's important to note that the pontiff turned his throne and his back on the people. This is a symbolic gesture of the divine or the high wills turning their back on the people of Custodia, and while the throne has its back turned to the people, this age of penance will continue. As with what happens to the penitent one at the bad ending of the game, people, members of the church and the congregation, try to rush up and claim the golden throne for themselves, and because of their guilty hearts they were punished by being devoured by the ash and remade as bloodthirsty beasts. These beasts then spread over the world and are the monsters that we face in game, as they are meant to spread punishment further. This idea is more clearly relayed in the in-game lore. 3 items give a retelling of this event. 1. The smoking heart of incense, 2. The heart of virtuous pain, and 3. The heart of cerulean incense. Each item has a verse from the works known as the Works and Graces of the Sorrowful Miracle, presumably a religious text from this period, and I will now read verse 2 and 3 together as one. The wind blew strongly through the fractures of the cathedral that the one tree had originated, lifting the ash, creating dense grey clouds, hiding the whole mother church and drowning her in a deep darkness of lead. The ground began to tremble. Then a terrible cry was heard from the depths of the mountain of ash, and that cry was joined by more and more guttural screams, animal roars, monsters, and one which was heard above all, the scream of an old man, which resounded gravely as out the throat of a giant. All those who once were swallowed by the ashes, emerged from it in great hordes, the hordes of the miracle, the punishment, with only faith in their minds and rage in their guts, willing to punish all those who had escaped from such a holy fate, from the will of the miracle itself. The chain of events speak for themselves, and I won't repeat myself spelling out what this actually all means. However, it is worth examining the morals and ideas presented by these texts. From verse 3 it says, willing to punish all those who had escaped from such a holy fate, from the will of the miracle itself. These monsters that come from the ash are a holy extension of the miracle. Chrysanta tells us that by killing monsters on our journey, we have committed crimes against the miracle and its outbreaks, these outbreaks being the monster and part of the miracle as well. One of those born from the miracle as a monster is the Ten Piedad, which is one of the first monsters we must beat on our path to penance. It looks like a stag made out of wood, again sealing the link between the miracle and trees and wood. There's also a bit of lore from the thorned symbol item that gives us a perspective from the person who used to be this monster before it was transformed. The lore reads, I'm still inside the creature. I can hear its roar outside. I can hear the thunderous beating of its heart. I just wanted to sleep, but I saw the miracle in my dreams. It spoke to me. That is why I lied down in the lady's open arms. But the miracle appeared to me again. It was more and more tangible. Then I woke up, but I was no longer myself. I was a prisoner trapped inside a rooted body. A body immersed in constant anger, in constant pain. I am awake in a sleeping body. So this is the Ten Piedad. It refers to lying in my lady's arms, i.e. the statue we find him in, and that he laid down there as a human and woke up as a monster. But more importantly, this piece of lore shows us that inside the monster there is still a remnant of the person who existed before the miracle transformed them. His penance is to suffer inside a body, feel its anger, and no longer control his own body. Our penance is to be torn apart by this monster, limb from limb. I'm once again going to refer to a passage from the Works and Graces of the Sorrowful Miracle, which says, Then a terrible cry was heard from the depths of the mountain of ash, and one was heard above all, the scream of an old man, which resounded gravely, as out the throat of a giant. This passage obviously refers to Escobar, a member of the church leadership that was, according to Altasgracias, was kissed by the grievous miracle, and transformed into a new twisted being, which is the giant form we face in the second part of his fight, and is named the last son of the miracle. He is a perfect example of how the miracle transforms people, and thanks to Escobar's dialogues, when he speaks to us through his dreams, we can get an understanding of how he transforms, and how terrible it must be.
I feel my blood turning into black sap, and my aged skin into reddish bark.
Escobar is one of those who is suffering the most harsh penance, and we get this from the lore of the Holy Wound of Attrition, which reads as follows. His holiness, because of his high penance, must endure suffering in his soul in three ways. Each way is a motive, and each motive is a sore. He bears a great burden, his great humiliation and penance, and he bears the burden of the Father. His suffering is what makes him so holy, because it is so intense. Yet it is the miracle who controls him, and it is the miracle who has paved the way to his defeat. We know it was the miracle who created the golden visages that we encounter, for the lore of the Wound of Contrition reads as follows. The miracle created the golden visages from the very fervour of the uncorrupted saints, to preserve them eternal in the forbidden dream. 3 identical faces covered in torrid gold are the guardians of the 3 runes in his holiness soul. Thus the miracle has created a way for the last son of the miracle to be overcome, but only for one who is truly penitent, and follows the path described by Altasgracias by committing the 3 humiliations, and then humbling themselves before the 3 golden visages. This is our path of penance, following the 3 humiliations, and then overcoming the last son of the miracle, and defeating him, freeing him from his torment. This is the path we must follow, and it has been constructed by the miracle as part of its plan. The penitent one also seems to have been chosen by the miracle, and his path that we play through in the game seems to be a will of the miracle itself. The first golden visage tells us that us being there in the dream, humbling ourselves before the golden visages, is part of the miracle's plan, that we have been chosen. The penitent one's chosen status also seems to be alluded to in the kneeling prequel comic, where Chrysanta says that if we are truly the chosen one, we will come back from the death she has just bestowed upon us. Aside from this, we also have the Blade of Guilt, which is a weapon that is the work of the miracle itself. So all these things seem to allude to the fact that he is chosen, but again I will deal with this in a separate video for the penitent one. It is just worthy of note that this is another work of the miracle, and it seems that our path is chosen by the miracle itself. This new world and new age of penance is overseen by the Church from the Mother of Mothers, and Escobar, His Holiness, is the new Pope-like figure. His disfigurement at the hand of the miracle is obviously seen as divine. His rule is more or less absolute as a religious authority, and we encounter a number of fanatical followers of his who believe in his divine authority. Chrysanta of the Rapt Agony appears to be a knight of Escobar. Not only does she stand between the penitent one and Escobar, but in the prequel comic, The Kneeling, she kills the penitent one and tosses his body with those of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow in order to stop him before he even begins his journey. But why was the Brotherhood and the penitent one killed at this point? Well, I would like to do a full video on the penitent one and the Silent Brotherhood, but I will have a stab for now. Escobar says he has dreamed of the penitent one and his arrival, but knows nothing of him, who he is, apart from his cold visage, which is indistinguishable from that of the Silent Brotherhood. Therefore, it's plausible to me that Escobar could have taken steps to prevent the penitent one from killing him, and knowing him only by his mask, the mask of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow, and therefore it's not hard to imagine that he would have all of them killed in order to kill the one that was meant to stop him. Of course, this is just my theory at this point, and I will look into it more in the future. Returning to the servants of Escobar, we also have the Anointed Legion, which seems to be a division of holy warriors that was created by Escobar and serve him. The Yova of Proclamation reads as follows: "It shall be called the Anointed Legion, said His Holiness. Under the armour, their bodies shall be covered with bandages anointed with oils that I myself will bless. They will protect the mothers of mothers as I will protect them. These blessed warriors help keep Escobar's rule and protect the Mother of Mothers Church, which is why Esdras tries to stop us at the entrance to the Mother of Mothers to protect the Church and His Holiness." Other events have been attributed to the miracle. Firstly, we can see the miracle created the 3 golden visages as a way for the true penitent to defeat the last son of the miracle. We also meet the being known as Altasgracias. This pitiful being was once 3 sisters, and these 3 sisters wanted to avoid the unavoidable fate of being married off. This story is told through the lore, found in 4 items, and I will read the first 3 parts from it, and these come from the items Torn Bridal Ribbon, Black Grieving Veil, and Melted Golden Coins. Together it reads, "Yes, brother, it has been a long time since I stopped officiating nuptials, since the day those 3 sisters embraced each other, praying since the day they asked the miracle itself to help them avoid such a holy bond. No one knows what they asked for in that prayer, nor why they didn't want to be wedded. The miracle, with its grievous plans, went to the aid of the sisters, if you can call that aid. I was there, I bore witness to that creation. The hairs of the sisters grew and braided, wrapping around them, making a terrifying crunching noise until it covered them completely, shaping itself as an egg made out of rough, knotty hair." So it would appear that the miracle is attributed with changing things. We can see in this answering of a prayer its duality, both cruel and blessing. It blesses them by answering their prayer, but not quite in the way they expect, and their fate is very cruel indeed, as we can see in the game. We can see the power of the miracle throughout the world, and through the monsters it has created through the pile of ash. But this is all well and good, but what does the miracle want? What is the aim? And what was the purpose of the pile of ash and the age of penance that followed? It seems to be the will of the miracle to make everyone suffer for their sins, but where does it end? Let us consider endings A and B to try and understand what the point of this Age of Penance is, and the point of the Ash. I interpret B as follows. You don't question your pilgrimage or go deeper, or answer the question that Altasgracias sets for you at the beginning of the game when he hands you the thorn. You just complete your pilgrimage the most basic way without looking deeper into your guilt, and kill the last son of the miracle. Then, when you try to climb the pile of ash, like those before you, you are weighed down by your guilt, as you have not looked deeper and you have not expelled the guilt from your body by undertaking true penance, which Altasgracias tried to tell you about at the beginning of the game. Ending A shows us the true path to penance, and the true point the miracle is trying to make with the pile of ash. Altasgracias gives us the answer right at the beginning by handing us the item thorn. The item description reads as follows. A small gift from Altasgracias, nailed into the effigy of the twisted under the guard of your sword. The thorns arouse from the miracle, feed on sin and guilt, growing with the burden that its bearer carries. He also gives us a big hint when he hands us this, because he says,
Take this thorn and place it on the handle of your sword. If, when the time comes, as you grip your weapon firmly, you notice that it wounds you and makes you bleed, having grown, with more thorns sprouting from it, writhing over the figure of the Father carved into the knob, that will mean that you are at the mercy of the grievous miracle, whether for its punishment or its forgiveness.
In ending A, we truly carry the burden of our guilt, and in doing so we evolve the thorn into more painful vines that grow as our burden grows, and our burden must be full before we have our final communion with the miracle. Firstly, we corrupt the immaculate bead by letting our guilt seep into it. The item description for the weight of true guilt, the item that the immaculate bead becomes, reads as follows. Bead completely tainted that has absorbed the sins of its wearer until completely filled. Encloses a storm of guilty and rumbles with the echoes of past mistakes. We let an immaculate bead absorb all of our sins, and when carrying it we understand the extent of our guilt. With this in hand, we are allowed to enter a series of trials underneath the confessor statues. Passing through the portals of the confessors, these trials involve tense combat and potential death and damage to our bodies and soul. When we clear a room, it gives us a message in Latin, which strictly translated means sacred oath, but can also refer to a sacred rite, and that is what we are doing here. We are consecrating our understanding of our guilt, by undertaking penance in the form of these challenging trials, and this increases our burden, and so the pain that we feel through our sword and the thorn and the vines that are growing around the sword increases. The more we suffer in this journey, the more we understand the level of penance that must be taken to appease the miracle, and understand the weight of our sins before we climb the ash so it does not consume us. When the thorn has increased to the custodia of sin, our burden is complete, and as it damages us as we fight our way to the top of the ash pile, our penance has been fully realised. We understand the weight of our guilt, and thus we have taken a penance commensurate to our level of sin, and so we are allowed to climb the ash pile and have our final communion with the miracle. When we reach the top, the penitent one sits atop the throne and sacrifices himself, a final act of penance, which turns him into a wooden effigy, and thus the age of penance that was brought about by this pile of ash comes to an end thanks to us undertaking the true penitence required for this age of sin to end, and our final sacrifices seals that deal. Altasgracias notes that despite the fact the penitent one has ended this current form of penance, penance never ends, and the will of the miracle is capricious, and so we can expect for punishment to arrive in a new form in the future. But for now, this exact type of penance has been satiated by ourselves undertaking a true pilgrimage towards the ash pile. So thanks guys, that's my take on the miracle. I'm sure there's probably more that people could dig into it, but that's the overview as I see it without trying to overcomplicate it. If you like this video and you want to see more blasphemous content, please give me a like and a subscribe, as I will be doing more. I plan on doing a video on the penitent one himself, and possibly the father. Again, I'd like to thank my patrons for helping me keep the channel going, and thanks to you guys for watching this video and helping me explore this wonderful world, and I hope you have a nice day. See you soon.